I'm going to keep this straightforward because I know a lot of people feel a little stuck when they're trying to decide if a cinema-style camera is worth the jump from a regular DSLR or a phone. The big question is whether the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, bundled with the Azden SGM250MX shotgun mic, actually delivers the kind of image and sound quality you need without turning your workflow into a headache. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent a few weeks testing it in a variety of real-world shoots, a weekend wedding, a low-light indie short, and some run-and-gun documentary pieces, so I can tell you what feels solid, what feels like a compromise, and who should probably walk away. First off, the camera's biggest selling point is that full-size micro four thirds sensor. That means you get a sensor size that's familiar to anyone who's used a mirrorless or DSLR in that system, which translates into a more forgiving depth of field and better low-light performance than the older Pocket Cinema models. In practice, I was able to push the dual native ISO up to 25,600 on a dimly lit indoor scene and still retain usable detail, especially in the shadows, thanks to the 13-stop dynamic range. That's the kind of flexibility you need when you can't control the lighting, like in a wedding reception where the ambient light changes every few minutes. It's not a magic bullet, you still need decent lenses and proper exposure, but the sensor gives you a lot of room to maneuver before noise becomes an issue. Autofocus on the Pocket 4K has always been a mixed bag, and that holds true here. The focus system is decent for tracking moving subjects, but it's not the kind of eye-twitch, face-detect AF you get on a high-end mirrorless camera. In the wedding scenario, I found myself relying on manual focus pulls for the key moments and using the focus assist peeking on the 5-inch touchscreen to keep everything sharp. The touchscreen itself is a real advantage, you can tap to focus, swipe through clips, and adjust exposure without digging through menus. That said, the menu hierarchy can feel a little dense if you're new to Blackmagic's operating system. There are a lot of toggles for LUTs, recording codecs, and RAW settings, and while they're powerful, they can slow you down when you're trying to capture a spontaneous moment. If you're comfortable digging into a few extra layers of settings, you'll appreciate the control. If you just want to point and shoot, the learning curve may feel like a hurdle. Stabilization is another area where reality bites. The Pocket 4K doesn't have any in-body image stabilization, so you're relying entirely on lens stabilization or external rigs. In my documentary runs, I paired it with a gimbal and the footage was buttery smooth, but without that extra gear the handheld shots felt jittery, especially when I was moving quickly. That's something to keep in mind if you're planning to shoot a lot of run-and-gun footage without a rig. The camera's carbon fiber composite body is light enough to mount on a small shoulder rig, but you'll need to budget for a gimbal or a Steadicam if you can't afford shaky footage. Lens ecosystem is where the Pocket 4K really shines. Because it uses the micro four thirds mount, you have access to a huge selection of lenses from both major manufacturers and third-party makers. I used a fast 12mm prime for the wide shots and a 45mm f/1.8 for tighter compositions, and both delivered crisp, cinematic images. The smaller sensor crop factor means those lenses are more affordable than full-frame equivalents, which is a real win for hobbyists who want a cinema look without breaking the bank. Just remember that you'll need adapters if you have legacy lenses, and those can sometimes introduce focus inaccuracies, especially with the already finicky AF. Battery life is something many creators overlook until they're mid-shoot and the camera shuts down. The Pocket 4K uses a full-size LP1 battery, which gives you roughly 4,560 minutes of continuous shooting at 4K 60 FPS. In my test runs, I swapped batteries once during a 2-hour interview session, which felt manageable, but it's not the kind of all-day endurance you get from some mirrorless cameras that use larger NPF-Z series batteries. If you're planning long shoots, I'd recommend carrying at least 2 spare LP1S and a small charging brick. The camera also has a USB-C port that can power the unit from an external power bank, which can be a lifesaver on location. Now, about the Azden SGM250MX shotgun microphone that comes in the bundle. This mic is a solid step up from the built-in mics on most cameras. It's a directional mic that focuses on the sound source in front of you while rejecting side and rear noise, which is exactly what you need for interviews or narrative scenes where background chatter can be a problem. In the wedding footage, the shotgun captured the vows clearly without picking up too much ambient chatter, and in the low-light short, it gave me clean dialogue even when I was shooting in.